Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 17th of June, now it's 15 past 12, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment, but before I start, let me take a couple of minutes and explain what happened yesterday and day before, why I was unable to make update. I did write a little note on Telegram page and on YouTube, but I will explain in update also that I had the technical issues. I was unable to recharge a notebook. Unfortunately, this kind of stuff do happen. Equipment may fail anytime, and unfortunately, I did not have the reserve notebook that I can use. So I have to wait before this issue will be fixed. And yes, that's it. At least for some time, notebook will, I guess, work properly now. At least I hope so. So there will be no such issues in the foreseeable future. I hope so. And this is a lesson, of course, to me. And whenever I will have opportunity, I will definitely buy some additional equipment to make sure that no matter what will fail, microphone, notebook or whatever, I will have some reserve and replacement, and I will be able to continue work. Let me express how grateful I am to all of you for attention that I did receive in comment sections. Many of you were worrying about me, and I'm grateful for this, but I'm fine. Everything is good. It's just equipment. It's just equipment that did not allow me to work and make updates. But it's fixed now. Everything is working properly, and well, I will try to make some extras next week to compensate those 2 days that I was unable to work. That's been said. Let's talk about news now, and of course I'm gonna start with Ukrainian special military operation. I'm quite sure all of you are well informed that during the previous 2 days, Ukrainian forces, despite many attempts on local scale to achieve anything on the front line, especially in Zaporozhye sector of the front line, they did failed, and they achieved not much really. And during the previous night, there are some reports that during the previous night, Ukrainian forces tried to conduct offensive in direction of Petersburg, this small village in western part of Zaporozhye sector. And there are different accounts. According to some reports, Ukrainian forces managed to enter this settlement and establish control over the few houses in this tiny village, basically. But there are some other reports according to which Russian side is in full control of this settlement. But anyway, this village, Pichikhatki and Zheribyanki, this second small village that is not far away from Pichikhatki, these villages are not even on the first line of defense of Russian forces. First line of defense is beginning in few kilometers from these villages. So as you can see, even this pro-Ukrainian map is unable to highlight any success of Ukrainian forces really, and it's already 2 weeks that Ukrainian forces are conducting this so-called counteroffensive. Only area where Ukrainian side managed to achieve something is this bridgehead, so-called Remensky Island or ledge, and here in gray zone we have quite a few villages now: Makarovka, Blagodatnoye, Starozhivoye, and a few others, but it's not even under full control of Ukrainian forces. They have operational control over this gray zone, but same can be said about Russian side, because Russian artillery controls entire this area. That's why this pro-Ukrainian map is forced to acknowledge this area as a gray zone. So not much is happening really on the Zaporozhye sector of the front line. I guess operational pause that I did predict quite some time ago will last at least a few more days, or maybe even few more weeks, and then possibly Zelensky's regime will give order to Ukrainian forces to conduct second wave of offensive. But I have some doubts about this also, because there are some reports that more and more Ukrainian units are refusing to obey orders because they don't want to participate in suicidal offensive operations. And if Zelensky's regime will pressure these brigades that are on the front line, these refusals may take place not just on the level of platoons or some little bigger units, but entire battalions or maybe even brigades may refuse to conduct operations. And that's why not just Zelensky's regime, but also Washington and London is now in kind of hot water, because in one hand they want this counteroffensive to continue, but in other hand, if they pressure Ukrainian forces too much, they may break Ukrainian forces. They may unwillingly provoke high level of disobedience and mutiny in Ukrainian armed forces, which may eventually result in the attempt of regime change in Ukraine, which is, I don't think in plans of Washington and London right now. They may want regime change in sometime in the future, and they may even plan something like that. But right now, I don't think they will be happy if Ukrainian forces will start to collapse because of this high pressure that they are under. So that's why maybe this operational pause on the front line will last not just days or weeks, but maybe longer than that. And I would not be surprised even if Zelensky's regime or general staff of Ukrainian armed forces will call off entire this so-called counteroffensive to save last reserves that they have, because as I said quite a few times before, if Ukrainian armed forces, if we combine their losses in manpower and military equipment, if they lost about 2 brigades, never even reaching first line of defense of Russian armed forces in Zaporozhye sector of the front line, what will happen when they will reach first line of defense? And if they will pour in more and more reinforcement, if they use all their reserves, they will eventually reach first line of defense for sure. And what will happen to those brigades then, if they lost already 2 brigades in areas that are not even part of first line of defense? That's why I was saying from very beginning, for months and months, that if Zelensky's regime will conduct this counteroffensive, it will be suicidal, because it was too clear to me then, and I guess it's too clear for everybody now, that if they will continue these offensive operations, it will be suicide for Ukrainian armed forces. So maybe Ukrainian general staff will prolong this operational pause and maybe even call off entire counteroffensive. But then we have some other issue also, because as you probably notice, lately Western media is actively publishing some informations about Zaluzhny, head of Ukrainian general staff, and to discredit Zaluzhny. It's some kind of media campaign has taken place in the Western media, which is controlled by Western elites, of course. So if Western media is pressurizing some points, then I guess that's a plan that Western elites have, and they are now trying to discredit Zaluzhny. They are basically, some media outlets, Western media outlets, almost openly blame Zaluzhny now for destruction of Nord Stream pipelines, and they are now blaming Zaluzhny for many other things, including failures of Ukrainian armed forces. And maybe we will see some changes in Ukrainian general staff, significant changes in leadership of Ukrainian armed forces in coming days. If Zaluzhny, for example, and his deputies in general staff are refusing to obey orders, otherwise why should West try to destroy their reputation? And maybe the Ukrainian general staff wants to save last reserves that they have, and in that case, I guess we will probably see changes in Ukrainian general staff before second wave of Ukrainian counteroffensive. That's a possibility in my opinion, because there should be some reasoning behind this media campaign against Zaluzhny in the Western media, isn't it? So quite interesting stuff is happening now, not on the front line, interesting and significant, extremely significant, not just on the front line, but also in Kiev, and in relationships between Western elites and the Ukrainian regime, leaders of that regime. So yes, let's see how will situation develop, but my understanding is that this operational pause will probably continue at least for a few more weeks, because yes, Ukrainian forces send additional brigades, new brigades on the front line, but that's not enough. They know very well that if they will continue right now this counteroffensive, they will lose those brigades also, and eventually they will be forced to throw more and more brigades in this meat grinder, and as a result they will lose last reserves they have. So, and not just that, but as I said, they may provoke mutiny inside the army. So there are serious issues now in hands of Ukrainian general staff, Zelensky and his inner circle. And as we know, Zelensky are not in good terms when it comes to relationship with the general staff of Ukraine. Defense minister of Ukraine is part of this criminal gang that are built around Zelensky, but general staff is a little bit different, and Zelensky never had good relationship with generals there, with Zaluzhny especially. And by the way, very difficult situation is in very difficult situation are also Washington and London, because as I said, if they will pressure too much on Zelensky to continue this offensive or counteroffensive, they will definitely probably provoke increase in disobedience in Ukrainian armed forces, and maybe even mutiny or attempt at least of regime change from militaries. So I don't think they need that right now. So before they will come up with some other solutions, it will definitely take time, and that's why I think operational pause will take at least few weeks, or maybe even longer than that. Or maybe there will be no second wave of Ukrainian counteroffensive, and entire this operation will be called off. That's a possibility in my opinion. When it comes to overall situation on the front line, Kherson region is the usual stuff, artillery duels between the sides. There are increase in activity of Ukrainian forces that are trying to cross the Dnieper river, which is understandable. Water level in the Dnieper is dropping significantly, and it's much easier now to cross this area. But I guess if first line of defense of Russian forces was destroyed because of flooding after Zelensky's regime destroyed the Novaya Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. Second line of defense and third line of defense are well prepared to deal with any offensive movement of Zelensky's regime in this direction, and even if we will see significant, even more increase of activity in Kherson region, all these operations will be just attempt on behalf of Ukrainian forces to divert Russian reserves from a main line of Ukrainian attack, which is of course Olekhovo direction towards Tokmak and Gulyai-Pole direction towards Pologi. That's the main direction that they will at least planning to attack, to establish control in, if they were successful, over the Melitopol, and then try to establish control over the Berdyansk, but they will never reach these cities, man. That they never had chance to do so. So yes, little activity on the Kherson region, but mainly it's artillery duels. Zaporozhye front line is operational pause. There are some local skirmishes between the sides, attacks and counterattacks, but nothing in a general scale. Donetsk direction is very active, and Russian forces did had some noticeable success in Marinka, but yet again this settlement is disputed between the sides. I mean, for so long now that it's hard to tell when this settlement will be under full Russian control. It's probably you see many video and photo footage, including on my Telegram page. This settlement is in ruins completely, and it's just truly difficult to fight in those conditions, and that's why it will probably take some time for Russian forces to establish full control over the settlement, even though, according to latest news, Russian forces did manage to establish some additional control over some additional territory inside this western part of Marinka. In Avdiivka direction, also some heavy fighting is taking place. Ukrainian forces are trying to conduct some local-scale counteroffensives, but Russia, at this point, we can probably say that Russia is using Avdiivka as a trap for Ukrainian forces, as a second Bakhmut, and I guess this story will continue at least before we will see end of this so-called Ukrainian counteroffensive, because main attention of Russian forces, of course, now are directed to this land bridge, towards this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. When it comes to other sectors of the front line, there were some attempts on part of Ukrainian forces to conduct offensive in direction of Artyomovsk, which is Bakhmut, by the way, this town. Of course, we all know that this town has these two names. Russians call it Artyomovsk, Ukrainians Bakhmut. So Ukrainian forces are trying to conduct some local-scale counteroffensive operations on the flanks of Bakhmut, but they are not really achieving much. And as I said quite some time ago, I guess Ukrainian forces in this area just run out of steam. And they do have orders to constantly attack, but they don't have enough manpower, they don't have enough military equipment, and I constantly do share video footages, these failed Ukrainian local-scale offensive operations, when Russian side just obliterating entire units and their military equipment. So I guess this small scale of skirmishes will continue for forever, as long as Russian side, before Russian side will conduct a decisive offensive operation, large-scale decisive offensive operation. And artillery duels are in direction of Seversk. Here, always hot point is Belogorovka, this settlement here, and Liman direction and Kupiansk direction, also artillery duels between the sides. And as it was predictable, there are no much activity any longer in comparison to previous weeks on this bridgehead that Ukraine had right next to Belgorod region of Russian Federation. Significant decrease in activity in that area. And by the way, I did report in my previous update, if I'm not mistaken, that Russia did send Akhmat special forces in Belgorod region to deal with any attempt from Ukrainian side to send sabotage groups in Belgorod region. And they are very well prepared to deal with any Ukrainian units that will try to enter Belgorod region. So let me continue now. I have to make this video a little bit short because it's Saturday after all. And by the way, I wish you a great weekend, of course. And let me continue. This is RIA Novosti's report, according to which in previous night Ukrainian armed forces did try to attack Druzhba oil pipeline in Bryansk region with the drones. And according to governor of Bryansk region, Alexander Bogomaz, Russian air defense did work well, and all drones were destroyed. But fact itself will make Hungary mad, I guess, because Druzhba pipeline used by Hungary to receive Russian oil, not just Hungary, but mainly Hungary at this point. And Budapest gonna be very mad on Ukraine because of this information, this attempt to destroy Druzhba pipeline. And by the way, I guess after Zelensky's regime destroyed this ammonia pipeline, Toliati-Odessa, a few days ago, more than a week ago now, I guess nothing is stopping them now to destroy Druzhba oil pipeline also. And not just that, but they are so out of touch with reality that they may even try to destroy gas pipeline that supplies, let's say, Germany with Russian gas. Maybe some forget, but despite this conflict, Russia still supplies Europe with the gas through pipeline that goes through Ukraine. And because of latest activity of Zelensky's regime, they did destroy that pipeline, ammonia pipeline, Toliati-Odessa. They did try to destroy Druzhba pipeline. I guess they will also destroy that gas pipeline and blame Russia for that. I don't know, man. But this information that they were trying to blow up Druzhba oil pipeline will definitely not be received in Hungary well. They will be very mad on Zelensky and his associates. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report. I will go through headlines now, if I may, because I truly want to make this update as short as possible. So Shoigu did visit tank factory in Omsk region, and he did made statements about increase of production by Russian military-industrial complex, and he said that more tanks should be produced, and more. He did specify that more flamethrower should be produced. Also, flamethrowers TOS-1M or TOS-1A. Solntsepyok, you all probably are familiar with that flamethrower. It's a devastating weapon. It's a devastating weapon, and I guess they are so effective on the front line that Russian defense minister basically ordering now a military-industrial complex to increase production of those not just tanks but also those Solntsepyok and Buratino flamethrowers. The next news is about Western-made fighter jets. Russian Foreign Ministry made a statement about U.S. decision, U.S. plans to supply Zelensky's regime with F-16s, and that's a quite interesting notice that Russian foreign ministry said that if Western elites will deliver Western-made fighter jets to Zelensky's regime, especially F-16, it will be very difficult for Russian side to understand those F-16s are carrying nuclear weapons when they are introduced in the battlefield or not. So Russia will be forced to respond militarily on these kind of risks. And well, F-16 is a nuclear capable fighter bomber. And well, this is first time when Russia articulated this topic, that Russia sees the deliveries of F-16s as a nuclear threat. And well, maybe this statement was part of Russian protest towards USA, or maybe it's something bigger than that, because I don't see. It's strange when the Russian foreign ministry is saying that if these fighter jets will be introduced, Russian militaries will find it difficult to know for sure that these F-16s have no nuclear weapons on them, which is true, because Russian air defense systems can track these planes, but they cannot recognize what weapons they have on board, isn't it? So I don't know. You know my take on this all this story of Western-made fighter jets. Zelensky's regime will receive none of it, of course. Western fighter jets will be introduced to battlefield only when Poland, Romania, and some other NATO member states will enter Ukraine to establish control over the western part. But still, Russian foreign ministry is reacting on informations from US, and you know, they are sending note of protest to Washington about their plans to supply F-16s. Let me continue. And Peskov did make a statement about long-range weapons that West is delivering to Zelensky's regime, and he said basically he did repeat his own statements from before, that longer-range weapons Zelensky's regime will receive. Further, Russia will push this so-called sanitary zone from Russian borders. And if you remember, a few days ago, Deputy Chairman of Russian Security Council and former President Dmitry Medvedev did said that that sanitary zone should be on the border of Western Ukraine. So I guess we have little by little, but we do have more and more indicators of plans that was developed or developing in Moscow, and I guess in major capitals in the West, how and when to divide Ukraine. Because I'm 100% sure after this conflict will end, Ukraine will be divided between Russia, Hungary, Poland, Romania, maybe Slovakia, and then there will be no state as Ukraine no more. Let me continue now. This is RIA Novosti's report. Oh yes, yesterday, by the way, Putin had quite a big speech on St. Petersburg Economic Forum, which will end its work today. And Putin did spoke about many topics, and I'm quite sure Alexander Merkuris will host of Duran show will devote time to this speech, and he will give you his expertise on entire this topic much better than I ever could or I ever will. And I recommend you to check Alexander Mercouris' video and the channel, but I will note just a few topics from statements of Putin, and first is about nuclear weapons. He was asked about nuclear weapons, possibility that Russia will decrease numbers of nuclear weapons that it has, and Putin says no, it's not happening. So that's quite serious stuff. Russia not just will not decrease its amount of nuclear weapons that it has, but I guess Russia will invest in production of additional nukes for new types of weapons that Russian military are receiving, including hypersonic missiles and unmanned nuclear drones, underwater nuclear drones. I mean Poseidon. Of course, you are probably familiar with that unmanned nuclear drone that has basically unlimited range, and according to its top secret, of course, weapon, details about that weapon are anybody's guess. It's secret, but according to information that time to time some experts are sharing on open sources, what that weapon, what kind of power that weapon may have. You may if you check on internet, you may find that warhead of that Poseidon may have a power of 100 megatons. That weapon is built to create tsunami type of wave on the shore of enemy, and use power of water to destroy entire coastlines. And by the way, 100 megaton is just unbelievable, because if you remember, Tsar Bomba, so-called Tsar Bomba, biggest nuclear weapon that ever was tested in the world, it was built in Soviet Union, and it has about 50 megatons of power, and it was so powerful. It was so powerful that shockwave circled Earth 3 times. That's how powerful that bomb was, that nuclear weapon was. And now you can imagine what can do 100 megaton nuke if it's detonated. And by the way, some reports saying that that torpedo may even have 200 megaton warhead, which is just unimaginable. It's I hope those nukes never will be used, and they will play just a role of deterrence. But I don't know, if these nukes will go off, man, world is in big trouble for sure. And by the way, of course, Putin also spoke about not just nuclear weapons, but also state of Russian economy, and basically he does have a reason to be proud, really, when it comes to Russian economy. And he did said that, for example, Russian economy is right now increasing 3.3% in annual scale. Of course, probably these levels will drop, this percentage will drop close to the end of the year, and for example, most optimistic statement that I see about growth of Russian GDP is about 2% to 3%, which is unbelievable, isn't it, in situation when Russia is under 10 to 15,000 sanctions. And of course Putin did had but right now, at this moment, for first 5 months of this year, Russian economy is growing 3.3%, which is, truly surprising. And he also spoke about diversification of Russian economy, and how important is Eastern markets for Russian side, and their information that Russian trade with Eastern partners in Middle East and in the Pacific region will increase at least 400 million tons, which is, by the way, quite something, isn't it? And I did share on my Telegram channel this video from Sky News, where you can clearly see that this journalist and host of that show and experts are not very pleased that Russian president did devote so much time to economy, and he was clearly highlighting a success that Russian economy is achieving despite this Western pressure. And well, I mean, it's factual, isn't it? Western elites, Western media, Western so-called experts may not be happy about it, but it's factual. It's true. Russian economy does quite well, especially if you take into account all that pressure and sanctions that Western elites are pushing on Russia. So yes, I mean, you cannot argue with Putin when it comes to economy's achievements. And by the way, this is also interesting news. RIA Novosti is reporting that, and that St. Petersburg Economic Forum will close today. And let me share with you some information, by the way, about participants of that conference. It's 130 states, delegations from 130 states are represented on that forum, and 17,000 guests will participate in work of that forum. So you tell me how isolated Russia is after these numbers, man. 130 states and 17,000 delegates from all those countries. It's not just official delegations, but it's a business, of course, delegations, and experts and analytics, and just you name it. So is Russia isolated? No, not really. So yes, Putin did spoke about many topics, and as I said, other channels will devote more time to discuss in detail his statements. But I did mention economy, that Russian economy is doing quite well, and it's true. And I did note also on topic of nuclear weapons, when Putin said that Russia is not willing to decrease its quantity of its nuclear warheads. And this is also interesting. Big African delegation from African states, peaceful delegation, was in Kiev, and they were trying to promote peace negotiations and peace talks between Moscow and Kiev. But as I said many times before, unfortunately, as long as Washington and London are not willing to talk peace, all these attempts from states from Africa, Asia or Latin America will unfortunately fail, because we all know Zelensky's regime is fully controlled by Washington and London, 100%. And if Zelensky even wants to achieve some peace, to stop all this madness that's going on in Ukraine, he cannot. He just cannot. He will obey orders from his masters, from his Western masters, and therefore this conflict will continue. At least, my guess is at least before summer of next year. At least for next 10 to 12 months, I guess. And this conflict will end with complete disintegration of Ukraine, and Ukrainian territory will become, as I said quite a few times before, will become under control of Russia, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and Poland. There will be no more state under the name of Ukraine. after this conflict will end. That's what Zelensky's regime did to this country and Western elites. And by the way, yes, one more topic from yesterday's statement of Putin on St. Petersburg Economic Forum. He did said that minimal wage in Russia in 2024 will increase 18.5%, which is much higher than inflation numbers. So that's quite good information also. And what else? Yes, probably you did read about this news already, that Egypt officially did apply to become member of BRICS. And we have RIA Novosti's report here, according to which Russia does support Egypt to join BRICS, and I guess all other member states will probably have same position. Egypt is a crucial state in Middle East and North Africa, of course, and well, I would not be surprised if Egypt will join BRICS earlier than, let's say, Saudi Arabia will, or Argentina. Argentina also wants to become part of BRICS, and it's a very significant state, but unfortunately Argentina do have some very serious economical problems and will need some significant help from big BRICS member states to stabilize economical situation, inflation, and so on. But yet again, Argentina is also a crucial state, and I guess in foreseeable future we will see in BRICS Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Argentina. At least these countries, and many more. It's long list of states that want to join BRICS or be associated with BRICS, had close ties. And few more informations. We have a statement from International Energy Agency, IEA, which published its analytics, according to which this year and from 2022 to 2028, global demand on oil will rise by 6%, and we may end up in a situation when there is some oil shortages on the market. Well, I guess there will be no oil shortages in reality, but to make sure that prices on oil are acceptable for OPEC plus countries, they will artificially create some little level of shortage, but nothing in critical scale, because I guess OPEC plus nations have a possibility to increase their production at least for 4 to 5 million barrels easy a day. But they will not do it, of course, because that will crush prices on oil. Well, and by the way, Putin again, because as I said, he had this big speech on St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and he also spoke about shift that is happening in the world when it comes to currencies and trade between the nations, and many countries are now distancing themselves from US dollar and euro, and Putin did notice shift to national currencies is a beginning of the end of the dollar, and it's true, I guess. I still think that in 5-10 years time, dollar will become one of the main world reserve currencies. It will probably remain as a reserve, world reserve currency, but there will be some other currencies also, especially one that will be associated with BRICS. But I don't think dollar will lose its influence or its status of reserve currency. I just don't think that that's even possible. But if world will have an alternative, that's good enough for world, isn't it? I don't think anybody will benefit if dollar will lose completely its status of main reserve currency, because it will destroy US economy, and that will impact world economy in worst possible ways. So I don't think anybody should want to see extreme decline of dollar. No, all the world needs is another reserve currency which not be used as a weapon, and that's it. And I guess we will see in next 5-10 years such currency that will be associated with BRICS. But dollar will of course still be one of the main reserve currencies, man. It's and by the way, we have statement from Maria Zakharova, official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, and she said that Western elites did try to pressure countries all around the world to make sure that they will not participate in St. Petersburg's Economic Forum. But according to numbers that I just shared a few minutes ago, Western elites did fail miserably, because 130 states did participate. Delegations from 130 states did participate in this conference. So it's a huge success on Russian part, and demonstration that if anybody is isolated or heading towards isolation, it's Western states, not Russia. Let me continue. And by the way, this is gonna be, yes, last news, which is about sanctions, Western sanctions. And Lavrov did spoke about this topic, and he said that Russia is now under up to 15,000 sanctions, Western sanctions, man. 15,000 sanctions. Can you imagine that? Most sanctioned country ever in human history. Unbelievable, man. And despite these attempts from the West to pressure Russia and destroy Russian economy and cause some internal turbulence in Russia and all the other crap that Western elites want, Russia is standing strong, man. Russia is standing strong, and will continue to do so with the active support of rest of the world outside of Western states, or except Western states. And as I said many times before, this world is much bigger place than Europe or North America. Much bigger place. This is it for now. I hope you will find this video interesting. I was hoping to make it short, but it's 48 minutes anyway. Well, I hope you will find this video interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. That will probably help me to deal with YouTube's algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you think this channel is interesting and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. This is it for now. I wish you a great weekend. Once again, sorry that I was unable to make updates yesterday and day before. And I will come up with some extras, I promise you, and to compensate that. And yes, this is it. Have a great weekend and take care.